I live in the cab. My Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the special call meeting for the Newton County Board of Education to discuss the millage rate. The meeting is now called to order at 6:30 p.m. We did have the opportunity for public participation since the meeting is being broadcasting, and the millage rate requirement is that we have to have 3 public meetings, giving the community the opportunity to chime in. Is there any public participation on standby?
None at this time.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board? Y'all want to give them a few minutes, or do you want to go ahead?
I just as soon go ahead.
Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and start with the discussion of the millage rate assessment.
Good evening. Today I'll be doing a presentation on the fiscal year 21 proposed millage rate. So first I want to talk about the 13-year history of the M&O Tax Digest. As you can see here on the screen, or if you're looking at the presentation on your desk, we have 13 years here of M&O Digest history. We have the digest number for fiscal year 21, which is just over $3 billion for this year, or for fiscal year 21. We are proposing that we keep the millage rate the same at 19.788, which would result in a gross tax revenue amount of just over $60 million. The gross tax amount would be reduced by collection fees that we have to pay, as well as any estimated uncollectibles or delinquent taxes. And for this year, that total would be right around $3.2 million. So this year, the digest did increase by about 7% from last year, as well as the gross tax revenue increased by that same percentage. So next I want to talk about the impact of the millage rate on the local revenue. So right now we have a millage rate of 19.788. The rollback millage rate is 19.031. So if we keep the millage rate at 19.788, it'll produce, as I stated earlier, gross revenue of just over $60 million. We do have a local fair share that we have to contribute from the state. And the way that the local fair share works is it is based off of the digest number. So as our digest increases, so will our local fair share, which will in turn reduce our revenue. So if we change the millage rate to any rate, that will affect our net revenue, because our local fair share is going to go up no matter what, because the digest is continuing to go up at this point.
May I jump in for 1 second? Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Just help me make sure I'm looking at the right thing. The local fair share being 15.1 million. On an earlier presentation in the budget meeting, on page 2 or 3, I saw a QBE local fair share. I think you referenced it as 13.965.
There is a lag in the QBE funding. So the number that you see on the QBE presentation from earlier tonight is from 18 months ago. So the digest number that we see right now, we will see that the local fair share associated with that 18 months from now. Did that make sense?
This was all based on the FTE, the conversation about FTEs.
The
what
local
affects
fair
the-
share is based on your total digest.
The 3 billion.
Correct.
Okay.
it's what the millage rate, it's 5 mils. So it takes the total digest and then it breaks it down to the mill, which is 3 mils. And then it tells you what your local fair share will be based on that digest. But it's still lagging
Okay.
at the state, from the state calculations. So like when we do the sales ratio study, those dollars, so you might get the figure that you'll see today, then we'll go and we'll do the reassessment, and then that money will then reduce our local fair share, but it won't show up until 18 months later.
Okay,
So it's all lagging.
all right. So the one in the budget that we did earlier, 18 months lag. This one is
In terms
current,
of local
it'll
fair share.
lag 18 months, it'll be potentially a different number than the 15.1 now.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay, I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have a slide that shows the per pupil expenditures for Newton County for fiscal year 2019 compared to surrounding districts or districts that are comparable to us in FTE size. And so Newton is at the top just for ease so that you can see it easily. But if you were to put it in rank order, Newton would be just below Jasper County and just before Walton County. So third from the bottom at just over $10,000 per pupil that we spent in fiscal year 19. So property tax is considered local revenue. So this slide, we wanted to show 19 Newton's per pupil local revenue is almost $3,000. The counties on the left-hand side of the screen, those are the same counties that we compared ourselves to on the prior slide when we were talking about per pupil expenditures. And then the counties on the right-hand side of the screen are just additional counties that may be close to us or may be similar to us in size or in some sort of way they may be similar to us. And so, but if you were to put it in rank order on both sides of the screen, Newton would come in down at the bottom below Henry County on the left and Douglas County on the right. And the next slide just shows Newton County alone for the per pupil local revenue over the past 20 years. And so the average for 20 years for Newton County is $2,413. And so we were able to get to that average or get back to that average in 2017. And we've slowly been able to increase the per pupil local revenue over the last 3 years. And lastly, I did a sample calculation. I'm sorry, I have to go over the millage rates first for surrounding counties. Here we have the surrounding counties and their total millage rate. So we have their M&O millage rate as well as their debt service, or what we call the bond millage rate for the counties listed, and then the total. Newton's total millage rate for FY19, or I'm sorry, for FY20 is 19.788, and this is the millage rate that we are proposing for FY21. And so there you see the counties that have higher millage rates and those that have lower millage rates than us. And then lastly, I did a calculation of what a homeowner would pay based on a millage rate of 19.788. The middle column with a home value of $175,000, that is the average home value, which that dollar amount was obtained from the tax assessor's office. So In that calculation, the homeowner would pay just over $1,300. If a homeowner has a home that's more in value, say at $200,000, they would pay approximately $1,500. And if a homeowner had a home value of $150,000, they would pay just over $1,100. So that's how. That's what it would look like, based on the various home values. If you have something in between those numbers, you can kind of estimate what your tax bill would be based on a millage rate of 19.788. And again, we are proposing to leave the millage rate at 19.788, which is what it was for FY20.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll open the floor for discussion. Any questions?
I would just like to, maybe you know this already, on the per pupil expenditure page, the first one, with Newton spending 10,000 per student, that was 2019. What would that be if we had the same enrollment as last year at 19,266? With the proposed budget as it is right now, what would that per pupil cost be?
I can calculate it for you and get it for you. I don't have it
Okay.
right now, but I can get that for you.
All right. Just want to see how much per student we're looking at an increase.
Okay. Any other questions from the floor? Any other comments from anybody from the floor? This time around, before I move to other matters of interest. Okay. Having other matters of interest? Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Coggins. There a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bailey. All in favor?